So I've realized that there's some shots that players tend to forget. And I realize this when I watch like some of the players I coach warm up. And one of them is the lob. Because they can't feed an overhead. So the players have a really hard time hitting overheads because their partner can't feed one. So the idea is how to lob appropriately, and kind of, I think it determines the situation and the grip, okay? So there are offensive and defensive lobs, okay? And the one thing we got to think about is strategy with those lobs. So I'm going to talk about placement first, okay? So before we even get into how to hit the lob, we got to think about where we're hitting the lob, okay? So if I'm playing a right-hander and I'm facing the net that way, that means in their perspective, my opponent looks like this. Their backhand is here. This backhand overhead is considered one of the hardest shots in tennis, the overhead backhand, okay? So what we need to think about is where we can lob. So if I'm playing a righty, I want to lob on the right side of the court, okay? And that makes it a lot easier when I'm over here. And the reason is geometry. The hypotenuse of a triangle is a lot longer than the legs. So if I'm at quarter from quarter, the court length is about 4 feet longer than from baseline to baseline. So if I'm being pushed over there, then I know that the lob across court will have a better chance of going in because I have longer distance to get it in. And it also is my opponent's backhand side. So if I lob cross court on this side, that is my opponent's forehand. So in my head, if I'm over there and I want to lob my opponent's backhand, I have to hit it a little shorter in the court because I have less distance to hit. Down the line is shorter. But if I'm over here and I want to hit it, then I know I have longer distance to hit. I can hit a little harder, okay? So with that, that should help you kind of think about where you're hitting it. Now, how to depends on the situation. So if I'm in trouble and meaning I'm on the run, the ball is hit hard, I have a really hard time of getting the ball, like dictating the point with any spin. I have a continental grip. That means the V of my hand is down the middle. And I'm simply using my wrists to hit over the ball, under the ball, and lift up. So that gets the ball to go up in the air. All right? So there's not a lot of movement, and the only thing is practice is what's going to make this better. A lot of players just aren't comfortable with it at first. But once you do it, it's really not a difficult shot. And a lot of, you'll see a lot of matches in pros, they always end in an overhead because the last thing the player can do, last chance, is they're running and they have to flip it up. And then they just hope for the best, but they know that their opponent now has a big window to hit it in and they're probably gonna win the point, but at least it gives them a chance to win or to get back into the point, okay? So the lob allows you to get back to the middle, makes your opponent hit one more ball, and lobs are technically easier to hit once you get used to it than hitting a passing shot or something like that, okay? So that's one way. So on the backhand side, I like to use a one-hander as well because it's a much easier way to get under the ball than with two hands. So again, I'm gonna use a continental grip, I'm gonna get under it and just lift up, okay? The more I lift up here, the shorter it will go. The more I go forward, the deeper it will go. Obviously, the harder I hit it as well. So trajectory and pace will work, okay? Now, if you're playing offensively, that's different. So when you have an opportunity to hit with spin, that means the ball is sitting there a little bit easier. You can get under it and lift up, okay? So I'm lifting up literally over the ball like this, so then it allows me to lift up and hit with spin. Now, why would I want to hit with spin? Two reasons. First of all, a top spin overhead dives into the court faster. So if a player has a play on the ball, meaning they're going to hit the overhead, the ball's coming down faster, so it's harder for them to time like a normal lob, which has no spin, okay? The second thing is, if it gets past them, so if I hit it over their head, and let's just say I get lobbed, and it's hitting here, it's gonna go away from me. So it's gonna go towards the back fence. So that top spin lob is effective in two ways. It dives down fast, harder to time and overhead, but it also hits and it moves. So if an opponent lets it bounce, they're going to have really hard time getting to that ball. And pros know that. You'll see some of them running really, really hard at lobs that go over their head because they saw the player go up on the ball, up like this, and that ball has a lot of spin. So the opponent's like, oh, I gotta book it because I'm gonna have to let the ball bounce because it went over my head. But once it hits the ground, it's gonna take off. So I have to get there. You'll see other times where they're kind of jogging when it gets behind them because the player hit up and it didn't have any spin. So wherever it bounces, it lands in the same spot, easy to get to when it goes over your head. So there's different ways, but that's only if you watch your opponent do that, all right? So that'll help you kind of justify what type of overhead or you're going to get or lob. But on your end, when you're lobbing, this would take a semi-western grip, like a normal ground stroke. What I mean by that is you just take the racket, pick it up, and that's the grip I like to use. And all I'm doing is coming over it with two hands. If I have a two-handed backhand, same thing, but I'm gonna get under it. See, I'm getting under it and lifting up. The racket head is not going forward much, it's going up. So you have to practice this a lot before you get used to it. But once you do, it's a very effective shot because opponents do not see this ball as much as like a normal lob. So you're giving them shots that they don't practice, they don't see. Probably a good idea to try it out, okay? So hopefully that helped you with your lobs a little bit. Give it a shot and it'll make you more effective on the court. Good luck.